Mr. Memani, a lot of interest in our studio, especially on the aspect of income tax. Let's just start from there. On your broad sense of whether it makes sense for our viewers to think more seriously about the new tax regime, given that previously there hasn't been enough of an incentive to switch over. So let's start from there.
Yeah, I think hi Rahul, I think the main emphasis on the budget is for people to move from the old tax regime to the new tax regime. And the new tax regime has much lesser deductions and everything else. My sense is if you look at the biggest deduction that people avail of is generally HRA. And then you have ATC benefits. So those people who are not availing HRA in a significant way or ATC benefits, so I have a feeling that there will be a lot of shift that will happen up to income levels of say 25 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 35 lakhs, or at very high income levels which are at maybe 2 crores, 3 crores plus, because then the number starts becoming material. At the peak, the difference is almost 3.5%. Most people don't get that kind of deductions. And at the base level, people don't utilize that kind of HRA or that kind of ATC level. So I think everyone will have to do computation for itself, but I think this will entail a significant shift, because if you actually look at the numbers, the large part of the people who are going for personal tax, 80 to 90% are people with much lower slab limits, much lower real income levels. So up to 25 lakhs, 30 lakhs, my guess is a lot of people will actually shift.
Exactly what I was saying.
That's interesting.
Because the effective tax rate becomes
it depends on
lower.
what exemptions
the only person who seems to disagree is Siddharth Zarabi.
No, this is the whole point. Look at what Rajiv is saying. ATC is a family in itself. And these are commitments, ATC commitments. Let's say if you're taking insurance products, you can't switch off insurance.
Correct.
And while it is sometimes missold in India from a taxation perspective, the HRA part, what happens to urban workforce? In our urban cities, let's take Mumbai as a sample, less than 20% of people own their own houses who work in the Mumbai region. For example, there are other numbers all over the country. So you will see significant difficulties in the transition to the new tax regime. We heard, and I say this carefully, we heard a similar bullish view when the new regime was announced, and it fell flat.
No, Siddharth is right, because you have Mediclaim, which gives you 50,000 exemption. You have the ELSS scheme, which gives you 150,000 rupees. You have insurance, you have other products.
Shankar, sorry, new pension scheme for the private sector, where there is no pension guarantee.
There's no one answer to that question. Chandrajit Banerjee, one of the things that you were concerned about when we spoke just before the budget was that because it's an election year, there mustn't be too much reckless populist spending. The Prime Minister and the Finance Minister seem to be very mindful of that.
Indeed. And we had talked about fiscal management. The budget sticks to the fiscal target, which is very good to see that. That's very, very important. And we had spoken about, there was some apprehension yesterday whether we will see this impetus on capex, and I think we are indeed delighted that the recommendation of continuing with this strong capex spend is focused upon.
Let me throw it back at you again and again. You, as say a champion of Indian industry, pushing the government to spend more, and the government throws it back at you. Chandrajit Banerjee is saying that why can't India Inc. do more to lift the India story? Why aren't your members investing more at this moment? If the prospects are as bright as they are, why isn't the money talking?
The money is talking, Rahul. Actually, if you really look at the capacity utilization across, it is crossing 75 to 85 in many sectors, and some investments are pretty much back on the boardroom discussions. And if you see certain sectors, the investment plans have come in thanks to PLI. But I see this really triggering off a lot of private sector investments coming into, and we have been saying that private sector is pretty much set now. And this.
But you've been saying that, sir, with due regard, you've been saying that for the except for the 2 COVID years, you've been saying that since 2018, and it's time that that you all walk the talk.
Yeah, walking the talk obviously comes. See, private sector will invest when the demand picks up, and the private sector will increase its investment, and private sector's increasing of investment will come as and when there is a reason for them to do that. And as you see, if you really look at the numbers of capacity utilization in the private sector, it had come down during COVID, and which has picked up in the recent past. At that point in time, of course, there was a strong need for the government to spend because the government did the heavy lifting. It is important for them to do. The government continues to do the heavy lifting so that private sector can adequately come in. So it's not...
Quick interjection, Chandrajit, Siddharth here. Just tell me, in your quick reading, do you think the facilities offered under the new tax regime will lead to consumption increase? You represent corporate India here. What's your own sense? Quick take.
So quick one is that we had expected, we had been recommending the tax, incentives to be, tax deductions to be given for lower brackets. But what has happened is we have seen a few of measures taken to benefit individuals, standard deduction of 52,000+, all of that. So I do think that consumption demand getting boosted because even from the highest to the lowest in the new tax regime, you have some space for everyone, and it's very important that, and probably it's a good sort of
I think the key takeaway here is from this line that was in the speech, and I'm repeating this: the new income tax regime to be made the default tax regime. However, citizens will continue to have the option to avail the benefit of the old tax regime. This betrays the lack of confidence whether this scheme will take off.
Well, so
yes,
I'm not sure, Siddharth, I'm not sure. Because I think last year was, with the cap going, limit going up and the tax rates coming down up to 15%, I think all the exemptions that you were talking about, right? I think if you do the net, maths here, I think people will find